I'm Stephen Foskett, the organizer of Tech Field Day, and we're here in Santa Clara, California for Tech Field Day, November 2016. If you'd like to learn more about Tech Field Day and what we're doing here, I urge you to come to techfieldday.com. You can find a series of videos just like this at youtube.com/techfieldday. This event brings together a panel of a dozen independent writers and speakers from around the world to meet with interesting enterprise IT technology companies to discuss technologies, to learn about things, to show demos, and to share things with the world. Thanks for watching.
So my name is Damien Philip. I'm a solutions architect with Cohesity, and I'm going to give you guys a presentation about protecting VMware environments with the Cohesity platform. So just to kind of get started, I'll show you what we have in the primary storage environment, and we'll basically be playing around with this primary storage environment and protecting it using the Cohesity platform. So in this primary storage environment, as you can see, there is one host, and we've got some VMs which are lined up, and it's running off of a primary storage, which is a NAS device, right? So now let's dive into the Cohesity itself and see how we're going to protect that environment. The first thing I want to make you familiar with is the Cohesity Dashboard. As you can see from the dashboard itself, you see a wealth of information with regards to the platform and with regards to what's been going on in the system for the last 24 hours. On the top left corner, you can see the time indication, and you can see what really has been going on in the system with respects to data protection. How many jobs have been running or are running, how many successful runs there have been, SLA violations, if any, errors, and also the number of VMs that have been protected by Cohesity itself, right? And then we also talked about briefly the concept of views and view boxes. So we also have a presentation of how many views are there in the system and how many of those views are being protected, if any. The next is the system details itself. And the system details, as it's a distributed system, is made up of 4 nodes, and each of these 4 nodes, as you just learned in the file system, bring a certain amount of storage, a certain amount of compute, and other resources to the table. And when they add to the cluster just expands itself, and that storage becomes available. So in this case,
the number of servers that's listed up there, is that just pulled in from the vCenter inventory?
Yes,
okay.
That's a very good question. We use VADP as a protocol. We communicate to the vCenter and get an inventory of all the VMs that are running in the vCenter and showcase that here.
Okay.
What and 0 jobs running, can you give a couple examples of what these jobs are?
Yeah, so we'll get into that right now. So let me just walk through the dashboard, and then we'll go and look at the jobs as well. So the first thing is the cluster is made up of 4 nodes, as in this case, and this is basically a 2U chassis with 4 independent nodes in it. It's a completely shared nothing architecture. Each node has 24 terabytes of raw disk and 1 SSD and 2 10 gig adapters, which connect up to a top of the rack 10 gig switch. So at any point in time, you have basically internodal communication, which is happening via the 10 gig switch. So if a node fails, the cluster is unaffected. If a network switch fails, because there is 2 network switches and we're connecting redundantly to 2 different network switches, the node and the cluster continues to work. If a disk fails, we've already talked about those scenarios, nothing is affected from the cluster's perspective, and things move on. Okay? The last thing here we're going to take a look at is data reduction summary. From the file system presentation we learned, we do actually variable length deduplication, so anywhere from 8K to 24K. As you can see, the data reduction information that is presented here in the lab is about 18x, which is actually pretty good. And this is normally what we see with VMware environments in customer environments. So if there is a certain amount of churn, the amount of data reduction that we see on this is close to anywhere from 8 to 22x of data reduction. That's what we've seen in customer situations. And then the last thing is performance information about the cluster itself. So now what I'm going to cover, and as you can see, there is a wealth of information that can be covered here with this UI, because we actually, like we say, consolidate all secondary storage workflows into a single platform. And you can see that from the UI. We have analytics, we have test and dev, data protection, and then platform related stuff in the UI. What I'm going to cover is VMware data protection, and I'm going to walk you through exactly how we do VMware data protection, straight from adding a source, which is the vCenter, and then going in and configuring policies and jobs, and then protecting the data on those VMs. So the first thing, let's take a look and see how we add a vCenter. To add a vCenter, we basically go under protection, we go under sources, and say register the source. So once we say register source, we get presented with two options. One, are you going to protect a vCenter, which is a VMware environment, or are you going to protect a physical server? So we're going to cover the physical server in an oncoming demo. Let's go into the vCenter itself. So once I click on the vCenter, it asks me the IP address, the username and password for the vCenter, and once I enter that information, I can register that source, and basically the vCenter gets registered using the VRDP protocol.
Do you have a minimum number or minimum permissions that are required for that, or does it have to be admin?
Yes, so preferably mostly admin privileges, but all the permission requirements are actually broken up in our config guide.
Okay.
And so that's available for consumption.
Yep.
So once you protect the vCenter, all those vCenters come up and show up under the sources. And also, as you can see, physical servers are there, and which we will cover in a different demo. So once the vCenter is there, at that point in time, with a couple of clicks, you can actually protect that entire vCenter environment. So if you select at the highest level, all the VMs in that environment can be selected for the policies and the jobs that are going to ensue, right? So now I can turn on automatic protection at the highest level, and if any new VMs get added into this vCenter, they will be automatically protected by the Cohesity platform.
So I see one of those has a SQL
Yes.
button next to it. Is that using some sort of metadata, or did it automatically detect that?
So
SQL's
that's a
installed?
very good question, and it was registered as a SQL server. And we will see that in a demo where we actually register a SQL server and we protect using the Cohesity adapter, a SQL VM. So we will see that in the demo also.
How often are you connecting to the vCenter server to discover new virtual machines?
Very good question. So we actually communicate every 6 hours to the vCenter, and we do a discovery to the vCenter and pull in new information. That's completely configurable.
Can you force a sync?
Yes, you can. You can just go under sources and you can say refresh, and that's going to refresh the vCenter and pull in new changes if there are any.
When you first connect to a vCenter, it discovers all the objects and begins the data protection. Does that hammer the network?
So that's a very good question. And so let's take a look and see what we can do in that particular scenario where there is a potential of not only a lot of network traffic, but also a lot of primary storage latencies that can creep up and affect primary storage applications. We have a feature called throttling. Once you turn throttling on, you can define your sustained latency that you would want to maintain on your primary storage. So for example, if your primary storage is an older storage and you see latencies of say 10 milliseconds or something and your applications are affected at that time, you can define the Cohesity to start throttling backups at 15 milliseconds. And once you define it at a vCenter level, all the data stores that are there are basically registered with storage IO control, and we look at the stats of storage IO control using vCenter, and we pull that information and throttle our backups back when we need to. So most of the time, older storage array does have a problem, but we do have a mechanism to kind of throttle our backups to kind of adjust for that.
And if you've got vCenter with link mode and you've got multiple vCenters, do you only need to attach one and pull from everything, or do you attach them all individually?
We actually attach only individually, and then that vCenter heartbeat takes care of the rest of the things.
How many vCenters can you have? What's
There
the
is
max?
no real limit that we have defined. That's a very good question. I don't have an answer for that, but I can say that I've added more than 15 to 17 vCenters, and I've never seen a problem.
Are you able to add machines based on a tag, or is it only by the hierarchy?
So today it's physical hierarchy. Very soon we're actually going to do all virtual hierarchy as well. So we will be supporting tags. Today the hierarchy is on a physical layer. Next release that comes out, we're all going to be on a virtual layer, which is folders and metadata information that is defined in the vCenter. So you can add using a folder. You can today even use REST APIs and VRO to actually add VMs. So if you're an automated shop, then you can use all those functionality as well.
What's the other hypervisor support? Is Hyper-V coming online?
Today it's vCenter. We are working towards making other hypervisor support also there, and Hyper-V probably would be the next one going forward.
You integrate into AWS. Is there any intention to be able to go and look at your EC2 instances in AWS and pull that information, those types of things?
So we do integrate with AWS for archival and tiering purposes. When we support the cloud replicate feature, we will be able to pull that information in our UI. Is that what your question is? Yeah. So just quickly to cover the protection, I'm being prompted on time. Adding a protection job, virtual or physical server. So we'll select the vCenter that we're going to protect. So let me go back to the way that I was doing before. So with a single click, highlighting all the VMs, right? Turning on automatic protection, clicking next, associating with a system policy which is defined already. It could be gold, which protects every hour, retains for 365, or silver, which protects every 6 hours, retains for 180 days, or I can select bronze. Or I can define my own policy. And in this case, let's go ahead and define TFD test and say that I want to protect this data every hour. I want to retain it for 1 day. I want to basically, at this point in time, define my priority of the job and define it to be a high priority job. And when I continue, I can actually select a replication target where I want that data to be replicated after the local site has protected that data, right? And then also here I can add a target for archival, and this target for archival can be Amazon, Google Nearline, or Azure. So once I create that policy, I can at that point in time associate that policy with a job, right? And at that point in time, select a view box. We talked about the concept of a view box, which is a storage domain in which you can control storage efficiencies and or encryption type of functionality. So any storage attribute that you want to apply to a view box would be storage deduplication, variable, inline or post-process, compression, inline or post-process, and encryption. So once you've done that and you've connected it to the job, you can turn on app consistent backups if you need to. We will leverage VSS-based snapshots to protect those VMs. And you can also turn on indexing for file level recovery. So once you have file level recovery turned on, at that point in time, you can go ahead and create that job. So once the job is created, the VMs get protected using Cohesity platform. Each of these VMs get cracked open, the VMDKs get cracked open, and we basically take a file level index of all the files in that VMDK. So I'm gonna cancel out of this, not save this information, but I'll show you a recovery now that the VMs have been protected. So I can go in and recover files or folders, and to recover a file, I just need to start typing the name of the file. So in this case, let me just say star.txt, and it'll pull up all the files which have the words txt in it from a global data set. So this is not, I'm not filtering into a VM to find text files. I can do that if I need to. The first level search is a global search across the entire data set. This is hugely powerful. If I have multiple jobs,
that result set you got came back really fast. Is that typical, or is it dependent on how big the set is?
It is very typical because we actually maintain index using our MapReduce functionality, and when we pull up these files are basically, they're already there. They're already indexed. Their jobs have completed, and we're pulling up these files really fast.
Is that done at ingestion? So as I back it up, I'm seeing that? Not
After the backup finishes, at that point in time, we go through the indexing mechanism.
Okay.
You said it's searching across your
The
data.
entire data set.
Is that looking up to
Multiple
anything
jobs.
that's been archived to the cloud as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Multiple jobs, multiple stuff that has been protected. So once you start searching for it, it goes out and finds everything that is there.
So all the
So
archive data is indexed
it's-
locally as well?
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's easier, metadata, right? So it's easier to kind of search for something that you don't know and you don't know where it lies and be able to search for it really fast. And then if you need to apply filters, you can go in and apply the filters by server name, server type. Is it a physical or is it a VM? In this case, I'll just say it's a VM, and I'll add maybe the type of the VMs. Then I can select and say I want to add the server name, and it'll show me all the VMs that I've protected. So I can maybe go ahead and select this VM and say I want to filter all the files in that particular VM. Once I've selected the file, I can go back to any snapshot that I've protected to restore that file. And I can recover to the server, give it a username and password. Let me just PME-lab-03, and the password is, I can recover to original location or change the location. I can override the existing file or folder. I can preserve file folder attributes, and basically I can recover the files. So if my password is correct, then the recovery should work. This is not my environment, so please bear with me. That is a file level recovery. I can now also show you a VM level recovery, which is instantaneous VM recovery because of Snaptree and because of the snapshot technology that we've implemented for data protection. So to search for a VM, I can just again go in and search using a wildcard, and all the VMs and all the jobs associated come up. Now I have an option, a very, very powerful option, which is I can either select one VM to restore, or I can select the job and have recovery be done on multiple VMs at the same time. So think of an environment where you have vApps configured and you protect your vApps as a job. Once you protect your vApps as a job, you can actually add your vApp or your job to the restore workflow, and in one single shot, recover all these VMs with Cohesity.
Can you restore individual virtual machine disks?
Yes.
Okay.
Not individual virtual machine disk, individual virtual machine.
Okay. Okay.
You can change the location to a new vCenter if you wanted to change it to a new vCenter or to a new data store, or you can change it and restore it back to the same location. Keep original NICs attached or detach the network and leave the VMs powered off, right? Or you can power them on right away. So in this case, I'm restoring a job which was a vApp, which had 3 VMs, and I'm going to restore them all at the same time. And basically, the restore is going to succeed. And once the restore happens, the VMs are powered on Cohesity right away. So already the VMs should be powering on inside vCenter, right? So let's search for TFD. There you see them, right? And while the VMs are being powered on Cohesity, they are being storage vMotion to their primary data store. And this is all happening in the background. There is no admin involvement. There is no involvement at all from a perspective of an admin to recover that VM. With that, I've been, sorry?
What if you aren't licensed for storage vMotion?
So storage vMotion license is a requirement for this because for us to be able to move that back. All right?
Sorry, just follow up on that. So then would the VM be stuck on the Cohesity in that case?
So we can actually do another workflow where we can run that VM off of us for a period of time, till the time if you want to do a file level recovery manually.
Gotcha.
So if you wanted to do that, you could go that route.
Do an offline migration as well if you're willing to take a bit of downtime.
Yeah.